That sounds great. So, welcome everybody. My name is Dr. P. Dominique Paterano, and I am the founder and head coach at Crimson Coaching, which is an academic tutoring, test prep, and college consulting service based in Riverdale, but I work with students worldwide. A lot of times people ask me, why Crimson Coaching? Why did you name your company that? Crimson is the color of my alma mater, Harvard, and I thought that that's really what I do is I coach kids. You know, I'm a little bit teacher, a little bit mentor, a little bit coach. So as I was mentioning before we started, that I was a teacher. I still am an adjunct professor at Bronx Community College, but I started teaching in the classroom history and social studies in 1997. And so it makes me a little bit different than other folks who kind of do what I do for test prep, college consulting, is that I really have this background of really knowing teenagers really well because I worked with them in large groups for so long. And so I feel like that knowing what teens are like has really helped kind of inspire this talk, which is an outgrowth of a talk that I actually gave at the library itself, probably a couple of times, at least maybe a year or two ago, which was time management and study skills. And so some of that you'll see in this talk, but this talk has really been completely revamped to deal with kids' needs during distance learning particularly. So tonight I'll be speaking for about a half hour or so. And then during that time, if you can keep yourselves muted, that would really be great because I get distracted by background noise really easily. And then at the end, we're a small enough group that you can feel free to open your mics up or put questions in the chat. And during the talk, if you're afraid that you'll forget your question, please feel free to put that into the chat as well. Before I go any further, I would just like to give a big shout out to Emily Dowie and the Pearl River Library for organizing and sponsoring the talk, and also for all of you who are, you know, after a long day of work, caring for kids, perhaps being on a bunch of Zoom calls yourself, you're now sitting here on Zoom again. So thank you for coming. So my three principles for distance learning success are figuring out how to manage your time, how to maintain your motivation, and how to care for your body and yourself. And it's my belief that each action reinforces the other two. So in other words, if you care for your body and self, that's going to help you maintain your motivation, and that's going to help you manage your time. So they all really work together. So my first little tip is that students should make a daily schedule. Now, I get that this talk, which I developed back in the spring when lots of students were not meeting even, every day or at all with their teachers virtually, and they were just getting assignments through the computer. They had to kind of plan their whole day on their own. That was really tough. Even if your child is in meets or somehow meeting their teacher online, they're still going to need to do this for the times that they're not in meets, because most kids aren't in meets all day, and for after school, the school day ends. So I suggest at the start of the day, and then when the day ends, make a list of the assignments that you need to do for that day or night in order of toughest to easiest. You want to do the toughest ones first. Estimate how long it will take to do each assignment, and then double that time. And students always hate that part. And they say, oh man, why do I need to double it? It's because everybody, especially kids, underestimates the amount of time it takes to do things that they don't want to do. And so if you double it, maybe you'll get it right. So with that time, you should write a start and a stop time for each assignment. And then try to schedule in a 10-minute break in between each little assignment. And if you're on your own, I know some kids, for instance, are on their own all day on Wednesday, for example. Other kids, it might be all day on Monday. If you're on your own all day, make sure that you schedule at least a 30-minute break in for exercising around midday, and another right after that, a 30-minute lunch break. I really think it's important to set alarms for breaks when you work, and you try to eliminate distractions as well. It's really easy for students to remember when they stop their work, but it's not always so easy to remember when to stop their break. And so if they set an alarm, that might help them. I also think, they get like an old school notebook, like the one I have here, and that they really just write a list, and then they can cross off their assignments as they go and as they submit it. I also suggest keeping your phone in airplane mode. Use it only to keep time while you're working, because if you get, Snapchat alerts, text, whatever, you're on a group text, it is going to completely cause you to constantly go between your phone, your work, your phone, your work, and nobody can really work effectively that way. If you don't think that your child can effectively do that and work with their phone close by, and you think you may need to take it out of the room, then you can visit my website. I have on the resources page at www.crimsoncoaching.com. I have a bunch of manual timers, the old school alarm clocks that you cranked up, and you will also be giving your kid 2 great life lessons. 1, how to read time on an analog clock. And 2, how to set an alarm clock, which I was shocked when I was doing time management coaching with a freshman in college that she had never held an actual alarm clock on with minutes and hours. So I had to teach her how to do that. You also want to keep a monthly calendar visible. And the kind of monthly calendar that I recommend is one of these large desk blotter types that you can tear off the page month by month. They're cheap. You can get them online. They're great for planning out long-term assignments, and that's not really the topic of this talk. So you could see my YouTube for another video on how to do that. But it's really important that your child knows not just what's due today, but also what's due next week, in 2 weeks, in 3 weeks if they're in high school, in 4 weeks. Sometimes they get long-term assignments and they need to keep track of those on a monthly calendar. Onto that monthly calendar, I would also add checking in with their teachers. It is very easy for kids to fall through the cracks when they are just a tiny little square on a teacher's screen once a day. Okay, so if the teacher is offering office hours, the kid should absolutely attend those whenever they're offered. But they should also make an appointment to talk one-on-one with their teacher once a week. So for example, if it's middle and upper school, make an appointment. Maybe you visit English on Monday, math on Tuesday, social studies on Wednesday, science on Thursday, and foreign language or some other special on Friday, so that at least once a week you're hearing from the teacher one-on-one and the teacher's hearing from you, because that emotional connection, that social connection is so important for learning that we really underestimate that. And the teachers most likely will do it if asked, but the the fact of the matter is teachers are overwhelmed right now. They're being asked to do so many new things that they're not going to, come up with, hey, every kid should meet with me, once a week. But if your child asks for it, most likely they'll do it. And in order to sort of keep your motivation, and we'll talk about this more in a second, you should also add a weekly reward. Maybe it's Friday or Saturday, and a monthly reward for your calendar when you're kind of keeping on track with your goals. So let's talk about that a little bit more. It's really important that students identify what their goals are for the day, for the week, for the month, and hopefully maybe even for the year. I have a free ebook. If you go on my website, you can download on how to do that. It's got like a little template, but I think it's really important for kids to get caught up in other people's goals and just what they got to do to get through. And if they think, for example, they want to go to college, if they think they want a full scholarship, if they think they want a certain grade on their SAT, it is worthwhile writing that goal down and looking at it every day. I actually recommend to kids use a wallpaper on your phone as a place where you can view that goal every day, because studies show that people who view their goals and write them down are more likely to achieve it. Another way you can maintain your motivation in the short term is to do fun things on your break. And I know kids love either video games or, checking Snapchat or text. I'm not a big fan of technology during breaks. I think students need to do more physical activity during their breaks in order to because they're tethered now at a laptop, right? And I know this myself because I'm tethered to a laptop all day as well. Sorry about that. Something just fell in my apartment. But so you need to make sure that you're getting up and moving in order to get oxygen into your brain. So take the dog for a walk, go shoot hoops outside, whatever it is to maintain that motivation. It's remarkable how just 10 minutes of activity can really change your mood. I think you should also schedule a fun activity for the end of the day when you're done with work. So whether that you like to paint a picture, and Xbox is fine now when you're done with your work, that's fine. Do whatever you want to do. It should be fun. And then bigger rewards when you reach the end of the week. Maybe you want to get a manicure if you're a girl. Maybe you want to take a drive to a special hike or something like that. When you've met the benchmarks that you've set for yourself, not just that your parents and your teachers have set for yourself. Another really important aspect for distance learning in particular is setting up the physical environment for success. I recommend working somewhere quiet. Now, I know the logistics of sometimes we have multiple kids at home. They don't maybe have their own rooms. I get it. Or we don't want to, they're not ready. They're too young perhaps to work in their own rooms. That's fine. Then I definitely think they need a pair of noise canceling headphones. It was Amazon Prime Day yesterday. I saw one on sale for like $35. I also have a link to kids headsets on my website. But kids should not be listening to music while they're doing their work. There's too much multitasking that they have to do. Their brain is going back and forth between music, work, music, work, music, work. And they should, if they feel like they need some sound, the best sound that I could recommend is something called binaural beats. And you can go on YouTube and look up, I'll put that in the chat later, binaural beats. Somebody remind me because I'll forget. But that's very good music for studying, background music. Again, I think the phone should be in airplane mode or out of the room. It's also really important to adjust your seating and lighting. And so, if a kid can't see, they're going to start getting, eye problems. Also, they shouldn't. It's remarkable, but I tutor a boy online, and he was doing his math on his bed. It's very difficult to do math on your bed. You've got to write. So I do think that students, especially for math and science, should be up at a desk. If they're doing their homework, they're reading in their bed, and all they legitimately need to do is read, I say fine. But as soon as the child needs to write something, they should be at a desk. I also think it's really important that games get uninstalled on whatever laptop they're using for work, because it's just too tempting to go down the rabbit hole for 5 minutes, you think, and then 3 hours later you're still in Roblox or Minecraft. So let's talk about how to keep our minds healthy. I think, and from everything I've heard, unfortunately, distance learning is in some form is not going away for a while. And this Healthy Mind Platter that's not been developed by me, it was developed by a neuropsychiatrist called Dr. Dan Siegel, who is brilliant and compassionate and empathetic, and he's written widely on infant and adolescent brain development. He's come up with, he believes, 7 different times that we need every day in order to keep our minds healthy. Now, I'm going to really admit that I find sometimes as an adult, it's really hard for me to do all 7 of them. I definitely, for me, get my sleep, physical, focus time in. Probably a little bit downtime and connecting time. But for me, the 2 biggies that are tough for me to get daily are play and time in, which is considered more sort of like spiritual or introspection. However, I recommend trying to get all 7 at least weekly. And I think it's really important that kids make time for these as well weekly. And what I suggest is to let the Healthy Mind Platter guide the schedule that you are making on your daily calendar, your little list, or your monthly calendar that you have on your desk plotter. So set an alarm for when you're going to wake up and when you go to bed that include 9 hours of sleep. And yes, I said 9 hours of sleep. The average teen needs 9 1/4 hours of sleep daily. And now that lots of kids don't have the extracurriculars and the travel time that they used to, there's really no reason why they can't be getting that. Also, 1 hour prior to sleep, you should sort of be doing no screens. The last time I gave this talk, someone asked about TV before bed. I do think TV is different. Maybe it's just because I'm old school. But I think we're much farther away from that screen than we usually are from our phones and from our laptops. And TV is a much more passive activity, whereas games on phones or computer or whatever we're doing is much more interactive. And so it's much more likely to keep our brain awake when we're on laptops and phones. So I recommend trying to get these times weekly. And I gave a talk actually for the library called Taming Teen Anxiety back in the spring that had a lot more on the Healthy Mind Platter. And that video is currently on the Crimson Coaching YouTube. So if you feel like this is interesting for your kid and you'd like to learn more, you can go there as well. So let's just talk about why it's so important to have a healthy mind. It's much easier to keep going and persist at a task that's difficult when your mind is happy and healthy and well rested. It is, and this is no joke, distance learning is difficult. It is, humans are social animals, right? We're primates. We weren't meant to be so separate from one another. So this is a very difficult time. And for teens in particular, they are supposed to be with their peers during this time. So that's a normal stage of their development. So for them to be often separated from their peers and just with the family is very difficult for them. So the more you can kind of take care of yourself, the easier it will be. I think there's also something to getting and investing in the technical skills that you might need in order to keep going. You know, it's funny, we always think, oh, the kids are digital natives, right? And while my nieces can show, I mean, they're 6 and 8, they can navigate their way around Snapchat like nobody's business, sending me Snapchat videos of, you know, them meowing like cats that boomerang back and forth. You know, they don't know, obviously, how to use the computer for work. And so I think a lot of times we think, oh, because they know how to make that video, they'll know how to do these other things. And a lot of times they don't. And they need to be taught that either through you or through, you know, there's lots of YouTube videos that you can get for how to acquire computer skills and technical skills. And the other thing that I think is really important is that we all communicate with one another and ask for help. You know, it's really important that kids know that they can ask for help during this time because it can be so isolating. So that could be help for whatever, either, you know, I'm feeling really depressed because I can't see my friends, or I'm feeling really frustrated because I can't figure Google Classroom out. Whatever it is, if your kid knows that they can come to you for help as an ally, I think that's really important. And again, I have a lot of books written by super smart people on my website, on the resources page. So, you know, feel free to check that out if you'd like. So I don't know whether there's any college students or parents of college students out there, but as I mentioned, I do teach as an adjunct professor of U.S. history at Bronx Community College. And so it kind of shocked me when I began teaching hybrid classes, which are sort of one day online, one day in person. Now, of course, everything's online, but the kids were just kind of telling me that they didn't know that they should transfer all their assignments from all their classes onto a single calendar. And so what they did was they had all these syllabi, which of course now no professors hardly at all hand out syllabi in a paper form like I got when I went to college. And so every time they needed to hopefully hand in work, they would have to go to the course website or the learning management system. It was a nightmare. No wonder why the kids were missing all these assignments. So the first thing that a college student should do is transfer all the assignments for the semester onto a single calendar. And then you can see, well, if all of your midterms fall on the same day, then either first week of class, you go to 2 of your teachers and say, hey, look, could I either take the midterm early or late? Or you figure out, well, actually, this Patterano's class in U.S. history seems way too hard and way too much work. I think I'm going to transfer out of her class and go into somebody else's class. Whatever it is, but you can't make these smart decisions until you know. And just a funny anecdote, I once had a student take my class over the summer, and I saw her name and I said, your name seems really familiar. Have you taken my class before? And she said, yeah, I took it in the spring. Now, if she's taking my class again, she probably failed, but I didn't want to assume. So I said, what did you get? And she said, oh, I got an F. And it was because I never read the syllabus until the end of the semester. But you know what? Everything you wrote on the syllabus was true. I really should have read it in the beginning of the semester. And I was like, well, lesson learned. Yes, you should have. So tell your kids in high school that that's what they should do for college too. This last thing actually is not just for college students, but I should have this on a different slide. It's for college and high school. It's really important that you try to maintain some kind of connection with your high school or college or middle school, despite the fact that in-person extracurriculars have often been canceled. Studies show that the college students who succeed the most, it's not that because they went to a name brand college, it's because they met peers, lifelong peers, through getting involved in the school, and they also found mentors who could help them. And that mentor could be a professor, but it could also just be a slightly older student who helped show them the ropes. And I do think that those two things are so hard to do through distance learning. But it's also my belief, as somebody who does college counseling, that the kids who will be successful next year and the year after in getting admitted to the top colleges are the kids who showed that during COVID, they were creative and maintained some kind of extracurricular life. So I'll give you two examples from my own practice. I had one student who was lucky enough to have a 3D printer at home. And when COVID started, he started printing face shields for doctors and nurses at the local hospital. I had another student who's very interested in adolescent mental health, and she wants to be a therapist when she grows up. And she got involved in an online group that did interviews with kids around the globe, and they about their experience during COVID quarantine, and they put that into a podcast. So these are two kids who did very different types of things, but nevertheless parlayed their interests into innovative extracurricular activities. So I'm recommending to all of my clients that they try to start doing that as well. So I'm almost about done. If you'd like to learn more about goal setting, again, I mentioned you can feel free to go and download the ebook on my website. You can also feel free to sign up for my monthly newsletter where I share tips like these. And also, there's a Crimson Coaching Facebook page where I send out notifications of talks like these, and a YouTube channel where this video will be, as well as lots of other ones. So you can kind of go there if you feel like some of them might be helpful for your child. So before I take your questions, and I hope there are a lot of them, I would just like to ask if you found this talk helpful or useful. I would be so appreciative if you could leave a review on Google, where you just Google Crimson Coaching LLC, and then you scroll all the way down to write a review. That just helps other people find me online. So with that, I would just like to say thank you for coming and open up the floor to questions. So I'm going to try to also figure out where the chat is, because I know Some might be in the chat. Oh, there we are. There's my chat. Oh, Sarah, please speak. Yeah.
Hi. Yes, I'm going back to school myself. I thought I learned a few tips, and I was wondering if you recommended a certain type of calendar. Like, how do you feel about the electronic calendars?
I'll admit that's what I actually use. And I only did this because I used to be very mobile, right? My car was my home office, and I had like a little bag for every kid I tutored, and I was driving all over Westchester and Rockland. Now that I'm not out nearly as much, I don't use that. But the reason I like the big calendars is because I teach kids how to split up like a long-term assignment, and say if they get assigned a paper in 3 weeks, right? You can't do all of that work the night before, which is what they usually do, right? And so we go through this whole process of figuring out how long each step will take, and then assigning little parts every day until it's done on that big calendar. And I think that part's a little harder to do on an electronic calendar. But the best calendar is the one that you use and the one that you look at. So if you feel like the electronic one works, and I say go for it. And Dee says, my son uses a great calendar from orderoutofchaos.com. I love that. I got to check that out. I'm going to write that down myself, actually. Order Out of Chaos. That sounds like what some of my students need, actually. Any other questions?
I have a question.
Sure. Hi, Grace.
How are you? I feel like your lecture is like I took it my whole life with you, because I do to-do lists. I have my own calendar, it's color coded, and I like to plan ahead. And I wish that my kids could take that on, and it's so hard because I wish they took what I do for myself because it works. But anyways, that's a whole struggle. My question to you is, what is a good screen time for a teenager, especially now during COVID?
So screen that's not associated with school?
Yes. No, I mean like cell phone, sorry. Let's get more specific. Cell phone.
Cell phone. During the week?
Yes.
Well, let me first ask, is your child getting all of his or her work done?
Yes.
Okay. If they're getting all of their work done and they're not missing assignments, I don't know. I think no more than 2 hours a day. I mean, personally, I would probably, so full disclosure, I don't have my own kids. I have 2 nieces, that's it. And of course, I was always much more like, oh my God, I can't believe my sister's letting her kids go on, like they're so little and everything. And then COVID came, and it's like, she was like, go on the screen. I mean, it was a lot, right? And her kids are small, and they required a lot of, I mean, she was basically homeschooling them because there was nothing coming from the school, right? So she needed her own time. And I think that screen time in non-COVID and screen time in COVID, we maybe need to be flexible because parents need a break too. But I would say I wouldn't worry about it for now so much, as long as your child is keeping up with his or her own work. The only time when I would start to restrict it is if you feel like it's interfering with him or her getting the work in. That makes sense?
I feel too much phone also takes away from them to be motivated in other things, like you said, like virtual clubs and sports and all that stuff.
It does. And I mean, this is a longer term issue about the screens in general, you know, and again, I see this especially in my older niece, right? She's very bright. And I remember myself at that age, and, you know, I was bright too, but I read like all the time, right? And granted, we had TV, but I think that was easier to control. And my parents would say, no, the TV's going off, you know? And my father was also a New York City police officer, so he was hard to say, to talk back to. He said the TV was off, the TV was off. But they don't read. And I would say the one thing, like how old are your kids, Grace?
I have a 15-year-old and a 10-year-old. The 10-year-old is not the problem. He doesn't have a phone. Okay. It's my 15-year-old. It's like a custom. I give her time, and it's like a battle with, give me the phone now. It's over. Yeah. Like, oh, well, come on.
I mean, the one thing I think that I see that all kids overall don't do enough is reading. And that begins to show up right when they have to take the ACT or the SAT, because the kids who haven't been readers, first of all, they struggle with the reading comprehension part of the test. They also struggle with the math part, because so much of math now is reading. And I also believe, and this is just my own hunch, but I believe that reading novels or longer term works increases your attention span. And the big problem with kids who don't read and who are only on their phone for fun is that their attention span is like 8 seconds. And then they get to a test that, like the ACT or SAT, that lasts 4 hours. And it's like, it just blows their mind, right? And granted, some of them do have ADD. I grant you that, but not all of them. Mm-hmm. They just need to increase their attention span by taking some time away from the phone. So that's why I would say, you know, especially that 1 hour before bed is so important. And even if they could get into, like, my dream would be is if every kid could just like read a half hour before bed for pleasure. It's something that we do with our little kids, right? Because we read to them. And then I think once they get into middle school, because they don't need us to read, they know how to read on their own, that stops. And then unfortunately for the kids who aren't really into it, they stop the habit of reading altogether. And I find that that's sad, because it does show up academically in other ways.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions or comments?
In Pearl River, are the public schools open for hybrid and online learning, or are they shut down still?
The high school shut down because my high schoolers there for 2 weeks, but the other schools are doing the hybrid. So from like the 8 to L, they go in Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday, everybody's remote, and then Thursday, Friday, the rest of the alphabet goes in. So
Wow.
far we're doing good. I think they're managing it pretty well.
Good.
Yeah, the school I go to, Manhattanville, they made a point of saying, we're going to be very careful, but we want you all to come back. We're going to do in-person learning. And then, like, one after the other, each of the classes, they're decided for various reasons to do it online. So I'm doing all my coursework online now. So it's kind of exhausting, though. You're on the screen all the time. But I like your recommendation to do something physical. I used to go for a bike ride at 5 o'clock every day. So I got to think of something else to do now that the weather's changing.
Yeah, and you know, it's amazing, because even yesterday I didn't want to go I'm a walker and I'll walk for miles, but I really I didn't have time, first of all, and I just didn't feel like I had the energy, but I wanted to do something. And I just went out into the park and I did like some jumping jacks and other like push-ups and stuff like that. It was just 15 minutes, but I felt so much better after being in the sunshine and moving around for 15 minutes. It really boosted my mood and my energy. And I teach an online class 7 to 9 on Wednesdays, and I'm more of a morning person. So for me to be awake from 7 to 9 is a lot. But just that little bit of exercise in the sun really did keep me going. So I think it's really important. And, I told my sister about, when online learning first started, and unfortunately, like my older niece, I felt like she was getting a little depressed. And I said, I think that she might need to move more. Because when you think about it, for, say, little kids, right? They walk from the house to the bus stop, and then from the bus stop to their classroom, and then from their classroom to their special, whatever that might be, and then back again, and then from the classroom to the lunchroom, recess, back to the classroom, back to the bus, back to home. So that's at least 9 times that they're moving around all day. Right? And it's a significant amount of steps if you were going to add them all up. And they went from that to nothing. And of course, for kids, any person used to moving around that much, if now they're just sitting there, they're going to start to get sluggish. So I'm a big believer. I also happen to be a certified yoga teacher. So I'm a big believer in that, we don't just think from here up, right? Our whole body, like our head is in a body, it's not just this little lollipops sitting on a stick, So we need to take care of the whole thing in order for us to function right.
Mm-hmm. Do you do team coaching on the side?
Team coaching?
Team coaching.
Like working one-on-one with kids? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's like basically my business. Yeah. I meet with kids. I met with like 5 today, earlier in the day. Yeah.
I'll check your website. Thank you.
Yeah, sure.
Dr. P, do you want to put your email or your website like in the chat?
Sure. It's in the it's on the screen, but I can certainly put it there. And I had to tell you guys something else I was supposed to put in the chat. And of course, now I forgot. I said, I'll put this in the chat. Someone remind me.
Something about some website.
I'm so bad.
Put it down.
I call it MABS, middle-age brain syndrome.
Something binaural beats, something like that.
Binaural beats.
Thank you. Binaural beats. It's a certain type of frequency that it's really good for the brain. And what I do is I just search on YouTube. I'll show you my search query. I put in study music binaural beats. Like if I'm in a loud environment and I need to kind of drown the background noise out. But I think it could also be good for kids who feel like they want to listen to something, but, Dr. P told them not to listen to Beyonce or, whatever. Any other questions that anyone has? So if any of you, I hope this is okay, Emily, that I mention it. If any of you has a college senior, I'm giving a talk through the Tapan Library on October 26th on how to write a great college application essay. So all of these are all on the classes and workshop page on my website. So you can check that out too. And of course it's free as well. And the nice thing is that all of these nice librarians like Emily have let people from not in the community register too. It's really, really nice. So one
So
night.
libraries are for everyone.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
that's great.
Maybe I'll talk. We don't have a young adult librarian at my library at the moment. We're in between. But I definitely would recommend that we have somebody bring you over. Maybe you could do a program for the Dobbs Ferry Library.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, thanks. We should definitely connect, Sarah, after the webinar.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll send you an email.
Thank you. Yeah, that would be nice. Yeah. I'm actually much closer to Dobbs Ferry. I live in Riverdale, New York. So,
I
yeah.
used to live there
Oh, yeah.
by Manhattan College.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes. I'm a little south of there in Spuyten Duyvil,
Oh,
although,
I know where that is.
yeah. Although I did just put my apartment up for sale, so I'll be relocating hopefully soon, but we'll see.
You moving to the suburbs?
I am indeed. I was 6 months on Long Island with my folks out there, where my sister and nieces lived, and it was actually it was nice to be close to family. I've been in the city for 12 years, and especially during COVID, it was really nice to have family close by.
Yes, definitely. Good for you. I
Yeah.
wish you luck.
Thank you. Thank you. But thanks to the wonder of the internet, I can always do virtual programs for Pearl River if Emily will have me back.
Yes.
Always.
That'd be great. Thank you, Emily, for coordinating.
Oh, no problem. That's what I'm here for.
We appreciate it.
Thanks, Emily.
No problem.
Thank you so much for your time, doctor.
Oh, thank you so much. All right, so Emily, you think it's about time? Should we wrap up and say goodbye?
Yes. And also, I put my email in the chat in case anyone has any program suggestions for me or wants to find out about more teen programs that the library is doing. So that's my email if anyone has any questions. But yeah, I think it's time to end, and let me stop the recording.
Okay, great. Thanks.